50 pounds per head for every Indian man. 25 pounds for any Indian woman or child, male or female, taken under the age of 14 years, or brought in prisoner, or proof of death, per Indian scalp of hair produced and delivered. Brothers, sisters, cousins, a few weeks ago, I sat with some Indigenous elders as they reminded my colleagues and I of the history of the land that we are on. When we talk of genocide, that is not a faraway thing. It happened right here. They didn't just come and kill Indigenous people. There was a genocide. They signed contracts and said, we will respect your sovereignty. And then they broke every single contract. This Indigenous leader said to us, what we are experiencing as Americans right now is not new. The system is working exactly as it was built to work. And one needs not look any further than this country's history to be reminded that what our community is experiencing is not exceptional or unique. First, they killed the Native Americans. Then, they brought over African Americans in the worst slave trade in human history. No reparations were ever paid, and the families that got rich off of that trade are still rich. Then they excluded the Chinese. Then they interned the Japanese. And there were many, many groups along the way. People say sometimes that it is the rite of passage of immigrant Muslims to experience what we are experiencing today, and that it too shall pass, that we will pay our dues and it will be done. Less than 10% of the original Native population still lives among us. They didn't end slavery. They moved it from the plantations to the prison industrial complex. When we think about who is fighting, the fires in California, let's not forget that a significant percentage of the firefighters in California are prisoners. There's a conflict of interest in our state. We can't release prisoners because who will then fight the fires on our budget? And as if it weren't bad enough that we stole the land, we built a wall between America and Mexico, as though we hadn't stolen the land, as though it were rightfully ours. When this president, whose name I will not say on this stage, talks about building a wall, it is not a new wall. He's replacing the existing wall. After sitting with the Indigenous leaders, I then had the opportunity to visit the border, where I heard stories about how agents with Customs and Border Protection subject minors to cavity searches without parental consent or even notification. In the same way that we talk about police officers killing unarmed Black men, women, and children in America, Customs and Border Protection agents kill people who come across the US-Mexico border without any consequence. So why am I saying all of this at a dinner that is probably 90% Muslim attended? Because last year, the veil was lifted. I still remember walking into the CAIR office after doing an Al Jazeera interview, and we didn't know the election results yet, but one of our staff members was in tears. She was worried about the relatives back home who would be bombed, about the family members who would be deported, and about the surveillance that would happen in our community. Except all of that was already happening. It just became a lot easier to talk about. When we think of this 45th president, in some ways, he's bringing our country full circle. When he signed that Muslim ban, the people that were enforcing it, that continue to enforce it, are Customs and Border Protection agents. The people, the same employees that kill people coming across the US-Mexico border, that subject minors to cavity searches. If you are a parent, can you imagine hearing from your child after the fact that someone with a gun and a badge subjected them to a cavity search and didn't even let you know? Our struggle is not unique, it is not exceptional, but it is also not one that we are alone in. People ask me, how do you do it? What keeps you going? In the past year, CAIR staff has doubled in size because of your support, so that every single day we could take a phone call from someone visited by the FBI, someone stuck at an airport, or someone whose child is being bullied at school. We've worked with elected officials to pass legislation in Santa Clara, San Francisco, Oakland, and the state of California so that we are 2 steps ahead of this president. He wants to ban Muslims, we're going to fight him. We're not just talking about the resistance. We are using the very same tools he is failing at using because he does keep losing in court to fight his policies. We've trained dozens of youth in public speaking, advocacy, organizing, and intersectionality. Because if Muslim youth in this next generation are just fighting for Muslims, none of us are going to get free. And we're working with our partners. Probably the most overwhelming thing for us after the election was how many people of other faiths reached out and said, what can we do? Because we've seen this story play out before. And it wasn't just your traditional activists. It was new people who didn't want to be silent allies. It was funders who stood up to Islamophobia and said, we know this is the moment to stand with the Muslim community. It was neighbors and friends. And so we took that energy and we started to say, well, what do we do if we witness hate crimes? How does one of us safely intervene? And so we trained hundreds of Bay Area residents, Muslims and allies, on safe intervention when a hate crime happens. Because it's one thing to say, this is what I would do, or this is what we should do, or this is what we could do. But this moment in time is one where we all have the opportunity to walk the walk, to intervene in hate crimes, to support organizations like CAIR, to join public interest careers, to rally outside of mosques, and on and on. But when my niece asks me 20 years from now, she calls me Puppy. Puppy, what did you all do when this happened? I want to be able to tell her that we did all of these things and we kept fighting until all of us were free. I was really secretive about the number of attendees for tonight's event because I wanted to share it with you all personally. Some of you have graciously been rearranged as we ran out of chairs and as table numbers got moved. So let me tell you, this is our biggest CAIR Banquet ever. There are 1,300 of you here tonight. And it makes sense that this would follow the year where CAIR's staff grew to 12 people, our legal team nearly half a dozen in size with more job openings, and more work to do. When I started here in 2009, I remember the slow days. We'd have a busy season, and then we would rest. We would have a banquet, and then we would rest. This week, as we prepared for this event, we were sentimental about those slow days. Because on Monday, the Muslim ban moved forward. The Supreme Court did what it did during World War II, letting horrendous, racist, unconstitutional policy move forward. And so we said, we're going to keep fighting. We are going to keep fighting because it's not just about no Muslim ban ever. It's about no ban, no wall, no raids. This is a collective fight. So I said to you, people ask me how I keep going. One, it's really exciting to have 1,300 people in the hall. The first time I sold out a banquet as a CAIR director, I remember talking to Athar Siddiqui, one of our presidents, and I said, I don't know what to do, we don't have enough chairs. And he said, Zahra, there are worse problems to have than too many people wanting to come to your party. Your civil rights party, at that. It is the women who cooked for the CAIR staff for the entire month of the first Muslim ban, ensuring that we were fed and nourished so that we could keep fighting. Give them a hand. They taught me that activism has many, many forms, and feeding the movement is definitely one of them. It is our elders who never say no to us. We call and we say, we have an emergency, we need your help, we need your advice, can you resolve this problem? Someone's life is in danger. And they say, we'll handle it. And it's handled in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes. We don't walk on the shoulders of giants, we walk among giants. Give the elders a round of applause. It is the young people who are going to law school, who are pursuing careers in organizing, who are interning and volunteering at organizations like CAIR and others, and saying, we want careers in this. How do we get to join the Justice League when we grow up? Well, let me tell you, if everyone here makes a donation, there will be jobs for those young people. And then it is our partners. Again and again, I think of our partners who this year helped make everything possible, who said we are going to intervene when there is a hate crime, who said we are going to rally at airports, who said, tell us what you need. We will ask logistical questions later. Many of you have heard about that rally that we organized when anti-Muslim groups came to Santa Clara. The part of that story that very few people know is that we reached out to our interfaith partners and we said, we need you in this moment, and they said yes. And then the next day they called with questions, but they said yes without asking. They said, tell us what you need. Tell us whatever you need, and we will be there for you. We have our work cut out for us. We cannot erase the history of this country's founding. But as American as the genocide and the slave trade is, so is protest, so is allyship, so is rallies at airports, so is civil rights work. And so are all of you. This president can't ban me because I'm not going anywhere. And he cannot ban Muslims because across the nation, people like you are standing up and saying, we are going to fight and resist and protest until all of us get free. Jazakallah khair for your support.